Hello and good morning, everybody. Welcome to Law and Society. Enrique TARRIO will be sentenced today, and we have all been waiting a long time for this. So, I wanted to briefly go over Enrique TARRIO's case. Uh, Not going to hit on very many specifics because we've been over it many times, and then sort of give an overview of how long I think his sentence is going to be. So if you're new to my channel, please like and subscribe and be sure to share this video. It really helps me out. So, Enrique TARRIO. I have personally been waiting a very long time to see Enrique TARRIO convicted and sentenced for seditious conspiracy. If you've been to my channel, if you've checked out my work, you know that I have talked about seditious conspiracy since November of 2020, which is 8 weeks before the January 6th insurrection. And I have waited a long time to see Enrique TARRIO sentenced for his crimes. At trial, we saw evidence of Enrique TARRIO saying, "We did that," in reference to the January 6th insurrection. While Enrique TARRIO wasn't there at the Capitol, there was evidence unearthed at the trial that showed that Enrique TARRIO and his co-conspirators talked and organized and planned on when and how they were going to go in and how this was going to be a siege. And we see Enrique TARRIO being in a place of calling the shots from the communications that were revealed at trial. Now, we know from the conviction that the jury doesn't believe that the seditious conspiracy statute requires a conspirator, a co-conspirator, to be at the scene of the crime, which is like Stuart Rhodes was, in order to be convicted of seditious conspiracy. And you don't have to be violent. You don't have to be. You can be, but you don't have to be violent in order to be convicted of seditious conspiracy. You have to have conspired to have used force, which there was ample evidence in Enrique TARRIO's case, as in Stuart Rhodes' case. Now, Stuart Rhodes, DOJ recommended that Stuart Rhodes receive a 25-year sentence. The sentence that was handed down for Stuart Rhodes was 18 years. Elmer Stuart Rhodes is currently the longest prison sentence so far in connection to January 6th, which is 7 years below what the statutory maximum is for seditious conspiracy. But Elmer Rhodes and Enrique TARRIO, they have been convicted of other crimes as well. So it can be said that Elmer's sentence is quite lenient because not only is it 7 years less than just the seditious conspiracy statute maximum sentence, it is also in addition to all the different crimes that they committed together. The judge gave Elmer Stuart Rhodes 18 years. Now, the difference between Enrique TARRIO and Stuart Rhodes is that Stuart Rhodes didn't have any priors. If you will recall, Enrique spent 6 months in jail because he burned a flag that belonged to the historically Black church in Washington, D.C. And he wasn't allowed, he was barred from being in D.C. for the longest, up to the run up to the insurrection. So he couldn't be there physically, but he employed his leadership qualities in the Proud Boys to gather the group and to galvanize support around, taking the Capitol. So I believe the DOJ has recommended 33 years. So that's 8 years more than what they recommended for Elmer Stuart Rhodes. And I believe a part of it has to do with the fact that he has priors. And if you have, prior criminal convictions and you've served time, you're dealt with more severely, even if it's not connected. I mean, it's on your record. When I worked or briefly at at a prosecutor's office, you always knew what the defendant's record was, and if the person was doing something that was inherently violent, or in my case, it was just minor misdemeanors. If they had a misdemeanor and then they were there for another domestic violence, it builds on that. The court sees that they have priors, and the priors are similar in nature. So, in some ways, the violence at the African American church in D.C. will, the prosecutors looked at it. The judge also knows that sentence is there, that conviction is there. So, I can see anywhere between 20 and 23 years for Enrique TARRIO. If I were to say low end, it would be a little over 20 years. At the high end, it would probably be, 23 years and some months or something like that. That's what I believe the court will, sentence. That's my guess. Now, it depends on the judge. It depends on, what argument or what is said in sentencing, if that inflames the judge or not. Like, there's a range. Obviously, the judge has a range of options of what the judge can do, and I don't know who exactly the judge is, if it's Judge Mehta or Judge Kelly, but in either way, I think it would be between 20 and 23 years. Now, I wanted to touch up on the fact that we have now seen over a dozen people convicted and sentenced, and about 7 people who have pled guilty to seditious conspiracy. So why not Donald Trump? And why not somebody like Roger Stone, who had Oath Keepers bodyguards on January 5th when he came to DC to check out the place where it was all going to happen. Joshua James, the first person to plead guilty to seditious conspiracy, was assigned to be Roger Stone's bodyguard that day. So my thoughts on the fact that neither Donald Trump or Roger Stone have been tangled, or the group Friends of Stone have been looked at more carefully, is that Jack Smith still has not been able to link a direct meeting of the minds. I would be very interested to know what was said between Mark Meadows and Roger Stone and Michael Flynn on January 5th, when Donald Trump ordered Mark Meadows to speak to them at the war room, the seditious conspiracy war room at the Willard Hotel. So Mark Meadows called in, and so Mark Meadows will be compelled, and I would, so Mark Meadows would have to be compelled, and other people would have to be compelled to disclose what was said in that meeting, and Mark Meadows would be the only person to do that. Now, from the fake elector standpoint, looking at it because Roger Stone had his fingers in the fake elector scheme as well. Don't forget that Scott Perry's cell phone, getting access to it, is also one of the things that is ongoing, and we don't know where Jack Smith is with that. So, just before I got on to talk to y'all, Glenn Kirshner put out a tweet saying, or a post on X, saying that, there are more indictments, DC indictments. And, I would not be surprised if the next DC indictment was for wire fraud because of the Save America Super PAC. But I can't rule out even still, a seditious conspiracy charge, which involves Donald Trump, Mark Meadows, Roger Stone, and if Mark Meadows is not a co-defendant, he's definitely, the cooperating witness. Would have to be the cooperating witness testifying to what was talked about. So uh, all this is going on underneath what we see happening, uh, before our eyes. We know very little about how Scott Perry's disposition, his cell phone, is going on. We know very little about, what Jack Smith has been able to excavate out of the information provided from the January 6th committee's report and from the DOJ's investigation on the January 6th matter as a whole. So, I don't. Today's a big day for justice and accountability because Enrique Tarrio will be sentenced for his conviction of seditious conspiracy. I believe the sentence will be between 20 and 23 years. Maybe, it's difficult to tell because the huge mitigating factor is the orange elephant in the room. It's Donald Trump's role in getting this whole thing going, and I don't know whether Enrique Tarrio will get that many more years than Elmer Stewart Rhodes. So I would go as far as to say, no, I don't know. Maybe 25. I don't think so though. But I'm could be completely off, and the judge may give 30 years or something. But that would be by far the longest sentence in connection to January 6th. Now, it is my projection right now that Enrique Tarrio's sentence will end up being the longest sentence in all of the January 6th cases. It's not going to go above 30 years at all, I don't think. I think it'll be closer to 25, maybe even. My zone is between 20 and 23, 24. So with that said, I am done with the substantive matters today. There's 6 of you, so if you're new to my channel, please like and subscribe. If you're returning, you may feel free to like as well, or unlike and criticize, which I'm always open to. I may not always respond to criticisms. I may try to integrate them into my daily videos, so the performance of it can improve incrementally. So if you have any questions for what I've just talked about, this implosion of Western chauvinism that Enrique Tarrio has so proudly touted. We're watching it crumble before our eyes. Don't think that justice isn't happening. This is justice taking hold. It is justice being the final word. Enrique Tarrio might want to appeal, and all of that will happen. Elmer Stewart Rhodes is doing that, but he's doing that from behind bars. He has been convicted of seditious conspiracy. Many people will say, why hasn't Donald? Why hasn't Roger Stone? And I just told you, it's evidence. We can see a lot of things like in a court of public opinion, and we connect the dots in our heads. But in a court of law, it has to be admitted evidence and not hearsay. It's not Cassidy Hutchinson having heard something about Mark Meadows going in the room or having a conversation on the phone. It's about Mark Meadows testifying to what he said and what he heard. And at that point, we'll have to see if Roger Stone ends up. I don't know if Roger Stone would ever cooperate. He would rather be a co-defendant. But I would think that there would be other people. We remember Ted Cruz talking about, we'll take, we have to force the vote. One of the critical elements of seditious conspiracy is the use of force. Now, we know that it doesn't have to be physical force because neither Stuart Rhodes nor Enrique Tarrio were physically violent. So if political force applies and if there is evidence that these politicians, they were actually encouraging and emboldening Donald Trump to have the fake elector plan and then have this ancillary insurrection part of it, which would aid them in forcing the vote. Like that sort of a connection. There's a gap there, at least from what we know in public. Remember, Jack Smith knows a whole lot more than we do. So, but something that is very clear about upcoming indictments from DC, I would not be surprised one bit if it is wire fraud and it's in connection with the Save America PAC, which has done everything else but investigate election fraud, which was the calling cry for the money that was then turned into the Save America PAC. So there's a lot going on, and I thank you all for being here very much. And I'm going to end it here and see you next time when hopefully we see another indictment.